What's up, y'all? iMagnoTV. So I did a poll asking everybody, if I should expose basically the corruption in combat sports, especially boxing, which is heavily what my channel is based on. And from my experience, like I said, I fought on pay-per-view, shark fights. I fought for the Art of War, mano a mano, STFC, 629. I fought King of the Cage. I fought. Um, in Japan. I fought. I mean, I've been in reality shows. You know, I've seen it all. So it's crazy, you know. And I've also trained a lot of fighters, so I understand how it is. And I have a lot of professional fighter friends as well who have been in the business just as long as I have. So basically, like what I want to get into is the corruption involved, and from the Olympics from the amateurs to the Olympics to the pros. It just gets worse and worse and worse. You know, the Olympics especially. I mean, it's 100% corrupt. Whoever they want to win will win the Olympics. I mean, that's why Mayweather. That's why Shakur didn't get gold. For the reasons. That's why the Olympics are specifically placed in certain countries. That's definitely 100% world corruption. Now, as you go into the pros, it gets just as bad. The only thing different is gambling is involved, and that makes it even worse. It makes it even more dangerous because the mafia gets involved, etc. So, with that being said, like when the mob gets involved, I mean, that's dangerous. And if you look back at like the past whatever 50, 100 years of boxing from the our 50s and 60s, that makes a big difference. Like they're 100% involved with the outcome of the fights, literally. And back in the day, these fighters would take dives no matter what. You know, they were fighting for their family. They were fighting for food on the table. This day and age, these young dudes are fighting to get a meal ticket. You know what I mean? Buy a meal ticket. I don't mean a meal. You know what I mean? A big payday, as Canelo would say. I promise y'all. I promise you. I promise you. It's all these fights are predetermined. They're all fixed to some extent. Occasionally, you can find some fights that are on those Mexican stations that are real, you know. But other than that, like when you get to the high caliber of fights, they're fake as fuck. I'm not even kidding. No joke. That's why I was telling you, you have to be conditioned as an athlete, no matter what, how fixed it is, to either take that beating and get that loss, or if you don't have to take that beating, if you have a good management and etc. behind you, they'll tell you, hey, you don't have to take that 12 round beating. You can make it look kind of real and just take a dive early, kind of like what happened between Ennis and recently, Claudio Clayton. But then you have Ugas versus Spence, where they had to sell it a little more, and Ugas had to take that beating. But that's what I mean. Teddy Ellis said you don't have to be ready to fight if the fight's already fixed. And you know that's wrong, Teddy Atlas, because you have to be conditioned as a fighter to be ready just in case you have to go that certain extent in order for the gamblers to win that spread. Maybe everybody's putting their money on a fight to end the seventh round, so you have to be able to take that beating until then. And I'm gonna point out to you right now. So like Davis versus Pedraza. Okay, I mean I love Gervonta Davis, but look, it's clear as day that his whole career has been cherry picked. And I'm not dissing Gervonta Davis. He's an amazing fighter. He's great. He's powerful, strong, everything. But don't act like y'all don't know. All of his opponents have either been weight drained or coming up in weight or had some kind of disadvantage. You know, and if y'all watch closely, please watch this fight. Pedraza versus Tank. I believe it was the seventh round. So Pedraza was heavily weight drained. Tank hit him in the body, hurt him, was almost about to finish him, but the round ended. So, but what happened? The doctors came out, two doctors, a Mexican lady and a white guy, and they literally performed a freaking doctor's visit on Pedraza right in the middle of the freaking fight. They made him take 4 steps back, three steps, 3 steps forward, or 3 steps to the side, 3 steps to the right, two more steps. They basically gave him a whole minute to recover, just so that the gamblers wouldn't lose in the eighth round. It was very obvious. That's the kind of stuff you have to look at. I mean, it's very, very small stuff, like the little things, the idiosyncrasies that you have to watch for that make a difference, that make you realize. And then you got to watch the spreads as well. Like when Canelo fought Bivol, I mean, Canelo, the fight started leaning towards Bivol, the spread changed. And do you know why the spread changes like that? It's because all the people who put so much money on Canelo, they don't want to lose all the money they put in Canelo. So the lines go up or down or whatever to favor them. They don't care about whoever else betted on Canelo. They only care about the big ballers who betted on Canelo. You know what I mean? So that's how that worked. And that's why the odds were changing as the fight shifted towards Bivol. And there's a lot of other things, like also padding records. Padding records. I myself know for a fact, I've had friends who were professional fighters. I'm not gonna name their names because they're my boys. I love them to death, but they would lie about their records in order to get bigger fights, and nobody checks on it. Nobody checks on it. Like for example, there was this fight recently where these two Mexican dudes were fighting. An up and comer who had potential was fighting another Mexican dude, and the other Mexican dude was like 14-0 with 11 knockouts or something. But once they fought, you can tell the dude had no fighting experience. And come to find out, I looked into it. And he didn't have more than 3 fights. Come on, it happens all the time. They pad their records, but not just padding the records by easy fights. They lie about their records, and it came out in public by mafia bosses, by fight fixtures, etc. I can't name names, but I'm telling y'all, that's how it works. I'm serious. So I know I'm kind of ranting on a little bit too much, but I just want you to know that's boxing is the most corrupt sport in the world. I'm not even kidding. Besides like the NBA. For example, um, Kobe Bryant, a blood sacrifice. He died, right? In a helicopter crash, something like that. Plane crash, helicopter crash, right? Then what happened? The Lakers won the championship, and they dedicated it to Kobe Bryant. All for money, all for publicity, all for marketing. That's what it's all about. It's all about money. One last thing before we get into the videos that I'm about to post is I've been on the shitty end of the stick before, you know, multiple times. They told me, hey, you're fighting this guy who's making his pro debut. He's 5'7". He's coming from Mexico. His name is some Mexican name. And I basically had every advantage going into that fight, supposedly. But we fought him in McAllen, Texas, which bordered Mexico at the STFC fights. And later on, the promoter ended up getting murdered. Go figure. So when we got to the fight, I noticed the dude was bigger than I thought. He wasn't 5'6", 5'7". He was more like 5'11". Okay? So they lied to me about that. And then they lied to me about his name because people in Mexico have multiple last names. So finally, I figured out that he was fighting out of Mexico and had 15 fights in Mexico and then another 14 fights in the United States. And he was fighting under Jackson's camp, which is a very prestigious camp in the United States, fighting with UFC fighters, etc. So they basically set me up to lose. But that's that type of thing that they do in order to fool people who are trying to come up in the ranks like me. So that was my first loss in 2009, But yeah, it's stuff like that. I mean, it's corruption all over. But anyways, enough of me talking about that. Um, like I said, gambling is super, super crazy. Degenerate gamblers, the ones who are really into it, they'll gamble on who's gonna slip first in the ring, who's gonna get knocked down first, who's gonna get headbutted first, who's going to lose their mouthpiece first. They really bet. They're really betting on every little small thing, and y'all be really surprised on how that shit works. So, but now let's get into the proof. Now I'm gonna send y'all some. I'm gonna put some videos up of professionals and celebrities talking about corruption in boxing. So enjoy.
With top attorney George Kokalanias, got done a good training session. George is heading back home with me and my young boy Bobby. Hey Bob, how you doing, pal? What's going on, George? What's happening with Tyson Fury?
Well, what's going on with Tyson is a major travesty. He's getting railroaded. You've been in the business a long time, and you know how corrupt the system is. He's being completely railroaded by crooked people. I mean, that's just the only way to describe it. I don't know what to say. He's not on drugs. I know that for a fact. And he's not taking anything. He's not doping or anything like that. The system is corrupt. And that's it. That's what you need to know. And, what else do you want me to say, pal?
Corrupt.
We've been doing this for how many years?
The sanction bodies are corrupt.
Oh, absolutely.
They would sanction a ham sandwich if they got paid enough money underneath the table.
Well, that's the only way it works.
And I believe
you made an interview earlier this year in February.
I stated that about boxing. It's a terrible corrupt business. But all that, I believe Klitschko.
No, Klitschko, listen. He is definitely involved in this because he's got everyone in his pocket. And I'm not saying he's a bad man at all. But I can tell you this for a fact. His wealth carries a lot of influence. And that's what you need to know. And that's exactly what's happening to Tyson.
Yeah.
Listen, Tyson has a little bit of a big mouth sometimes. Let's be honest.
He tells the way he's a gypsy warrior.
Well, that being said, I don't know. But I can tell you this. He is a nice man. He's a gentleman. And he has a lot of points that he's right about. And this stress is almost going to kill him.
But George, and
tonight's main event between Pacquiao and Marquez.
Well, I don't know. No, this is what I have to say. They always had great fights. The fighters are no problem, but we have problems with the judges. The judges is what the problem is, okay? And so until we get some government function to oversee boxing, it's always going to be who they want to win is going to win, because this is the most corrupt sport and unorganized profession in the history of profession. And just the fact that the government won't oversee it is bad, and that's bad taste in itself. And that's the reason this is one of the fights that turn people away from boxing, because this is the only fight that people look forward to see Marquez and Pacquiao fight, really, because everything else is really not that happening right now. So when they did that with boxing, that's bad. So we got to see what the judges are going to do tonight. That's the main objection of the fight. You don't know who's going to win. We need to find out who's judging the fight, and were they judging the fights the last time these guys fought.
How'd you score the last three fights? Who'd you felt win? Because I know they were extremely close decisions and disputed as well.
Listen, I'm going to tell you one fight. I was at one fight, and I respect all these fighters, but I was at one fight when Pacquiao won with 1 point, and I don't understand that. I just don't understand how a guy could win by 1 point. I just don't know how that works. But it does. It does. It's 1 point. How do you win by 1 point? How do you do that? It's the draw. Okay, how do you win by 1 point? You just don't do that. You just doesn't have 1 point. Is the guy's 1 point better than you? How are you 1 point better than someone? It doesn't exist. So until we have better judging, we'll get better decisions. But the fighters are great. The fighters are awesome. But we need to do something about judging.
A call. There's not a meeting. There's not a memorandum. There's not any unspoken rule that I'm telling Cam, hey, can you whisper to Charles that, hey, he needs to lose, or she needs to lose, or he needs to. That's not taking place in the boxing world.
It doesn't have to take place.
It's unspoken. They know it.
It's unspoken. They all know it.
Okay. So when did you go and flip from just being somebody that could read the fighters and pick them well? When did you flip and saying, maybe I ought to think about, fixing these fights and get involved in that? How did that transition take place?
When I started spending my own money.
Okay.
Because no matter what happens to your fighter, you're spending your money. And obviously, it's to your advantage. Well, I was going to say it's to your advantage that your fighter win. And that's true most of the time. It's not true all of the time, but it's true most of the time. And, well, we can get to that, why it's not always true. But I realized that first I was wasting time, by even, I was picking correctly almost all the time because I know the business and I know fighting. But especially with heavyweights, things can happen. Guys bang their heads, they get hit to the body with a shot that, there are contingency things that you can't predict. And I thought, this is crazy. If this other guy's going to lose anyway, why should he have to battle my guy for 7 or 8 rounds and really get kicked around when I can say to him, you don't have to do this. You're going to lose anyway. I guarantee you're going to lose anyway, but you're going to get hurt. But we can go home early.
4th round, 3rd round, 5th round.
Yeah, whatever you work out. And you can work out, there can be incredible specificity at times.
For a second.
I ain't getting a rematch, man. This is boxing. Boxing is full of shit, man. I used to love this sport. I used to love this sport, man. I cannot stand doing this. The only reason I do this is because it gives me a good payday. Boxing is full of shit.
Paulie, assuming you don't get the rematch, you here have reestablished yourself on a world-class level. What would you want next?
Listen, anything that comes my way. I mean, I'm just an opponent after losing the fight. One can go call out the winner of Marquez and Mayweather or the winner of another big fight. I don't have that luxury because I got robbed, so I'm on the short end of the stick. So I got to sit back and hope I get used as an opponent in somebody's hometown again. This is the bullshit I got to go through. I'm fighting for
Paulie, congratulations on a tremendous performance and an excellent fight. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Thank you, Juan. Houston, congratulations. You guys are a great fight town. Juan Diaz, the Warrior. You guys got a great hometown warrior. But I won this fight. I won this fight.
Dealing with something like boxing and you're dealing with human beings, we call it peddling in flesh. Even though you're paying them, it's still, dealing in flesh,
Wow.
People are life in general is very short and it's unpredictable, but life is more unpredictable than it is short. So you have to understand you're dealing with human beings, so you're dealing with the probability of anything happening. Wow. And you have to also know this about boxing. It's the only business in the world. It's the only business, legalized business, that everything is not always on top of the table. There's always something under the table.
Some secret shit going
There's
on.
always, it's not going to work.
Wow.
This is how it works.
And why is that in 2012 that, boxing is still...
It should be taken over by the government, I believe.
It doesn't have like a governing body like the NFL or the NBA.
Exactly. Just like, look, 50 Cent is this is like 50 is he's a rap star. 50 is an entertainer. 50 is a entrepreneur. And 50 don't really know the ins and outs of boxing. He knows probably what Floyd tells him. But once he gets in this arena,
it's a rap.
Once he gets in this arena, anybody that was ever his friend that's on the other side is his enemy. Their job is to totally decimate him financially and get him out of the business.
Yo, that's crazy.
All right. So now any fighters or anybody that's a possible, if they're not on your team, this is what it is. It's a gang. Boxing was developed from gangs. The old Irish guys, old Dutch guys. It was a guy named Jim Bleacher.
Wow,
and he always and he always put his slash on his corner. So that's how we got the red and blue corner. But you know what the red means? That's my gang. That's the representation of the gang, my political gang. If I win this fight, like the ancient, if I win this fight against your champion, it's all gangs. Gangs. It's all originated from gangs. The whole world. If my gang wins this fight, we own the whole district until you get a champion that could beat my fighter. If you don't want to accept that challenge, my gang against your gang, then a lot of people die. So they pick their champion and his champion, and the red represents, and the blue, Democrat and Republican.
Get the fuck out of here.
And that was all.
That's what the corners represent. No one knows that, but it represents Democrat and Republican.
Wow.